Well, hello everyone, and welcome to today's presentation on competency-based learning and assessment. My name is Dr. Olin Odekoven. I am the President and CEO of Peregrine Global Services. And joining me here today in this panel discussion is Alima Jamian-Surian, who is soon to be moving to Japan to take over and be our Director of Asian, Pacific, and Indian operations. Next to her, virtually of course, is Desiree Moore, our marketing and business development person, lives in Craig, Colorado. Here in Gillette, Wyoming, our world headquarters of Peregrine Global Services, Kayla Voss, Director of Client Services, and Christina Perry, our Portfolio Manager and Director of Latin American Operations. Bill Parrott is here. All of you know Bill Parrott, Mr. Accreditation, we sometimes refer to him. Bill Parrott is our Director of Accreditation Services. And then, of course, we have Paul Millett. Paul is in our European office and Director of European, Middle East, and African Operations. Here at Peregrine, we are truly catalysts for change. Our desire is to work with you to help develop solutions that matter to you, help make an impact in your educational programs, and that working together with our clients and partners, we believe that we can change the world and leverage the talents that we bring and leverage your capabilities and capacities to truly make a difference in the world. Well, let's get started here. And Bill, let's get started with you and kick this discussion off. You've engaged over the last few months with several different schools and attended various webinars and been talking to a lot of people about what's going on with the global pandemic and how they're responding. What are some of the best practices and lessons learned that you've been seeing in your travels virtually around the planet?
Thanks, Olin. Most of us have been kind of going through a very disjointed time right now. And going through and listening to people and hearing, there's three things that seem to come to mind that really pop out. And they're not, mind-blowing issues. But the first one is being flexible. You get in this time, we've got to be able to make change and do things differently and not worry about what we used to do. Not, the 7 deadly words, we've never done it that way before. Had to be out of our language. Flexibility seems to be the key to most of the changes going on right now. Also, in education, most people have been tied to the classroom, and right now we're in different modes of teaching. So being able to operate in different delivery methods is very important. And I know I've talked to some of you who are preparing 2 and 3 syllabi for the fall because you don't know exactly how you're going to be delivering the education. So it's important that we be able to operate in a different delivery mode. And then the end is what we always talk about. We need to work collaboratively. Can't do it alone. And we change these places and work spaces. We have to work together. And that seems to be the three things that everything I've gathered is what's causing stress, but also helping solve the problem.
Yep. And maybe some opportunities in there as we look at. Speaking of opportunities and what perspectives are going on in Europe, Paul, I know you've been talking with a lot of our European partners and Africa and Middle East. What are some of the things you're seeing by way of best practices and lessons learned?
Well, it's interesting. During the onslaught of COVID-19, there was really no standard way in which schools responded to this. It appears that schools who had better education technology infrastructure were able to transition, of course, more easily. Some schools up to 80% of their courses online more easily, whereas schools that were less prepared were kind of scrambling around. One thing that we did find, or at least the feedback I've gotten, is that both full part-time faculty, administrators, all stepped up to the plate to really work hard, work together to find solutions to make this happen as smoothly as possible. The other thing that was interesting is that many deans, directors, faculty members really were looking for best practices, seeking out how to do it better. And a lot of accreditors, a lot of organizations, ours included, really helped to bring schools together to really accentuate the best practices and put them into place. Other things that have come about is that students who are used to on-site sitting in a classroom face-to-face with faculty don't really want this to continue. But this creates challenges for schools because a lot of places next fall and through 2021 will be restricting the number of students in a classroom. So this is creating a problem for institutions with having to create a hybrid approach. So they're looking for solutions to kind of fill in some of these gaps. And so that's kind of the things that we have been experiencing on this side of the globe. Of course, a lot of other things, but coming together to try to come up with solutions that really complete what schools are trying to put into place for the next academic year.
All right, well, thank you, Paul. Turning our attention now to Latin America. Christina, I know you've been talking with our Latin American partners. What are the things are you picking up by way of lessons learned?
Thank you, Ellen. I'll echo what Bill and Paul were talking about in the need for flexibility. And what I found is that education is becoming more student-focused rather than on the institution, and that the art of teaching is no longer just standing in front of a classroom to deliver content. It's really the teacher as a guide, guiding the student toward a more successful life. So they're really expressing the need for flexibility and the ability to adapt to change no matter what the industry is that is most indicative of future success.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you, Christina. Alma, you're soon to be transitioning to the East, moving here shortly and assuming a new role and responsibilities, our Director of Asian Pacific and Indian Operations. But I know you've already started talking to folks within that region. What are some of the things you've picked up by way of lessons learned and best practices?
Yeah, thank you, Olin. From the experiences of the higher educational institutions in the region, Asia-Pacific region, we have gathered quite a few observations. So first of all, in these rapidly changing situations, schools are conducting iterative environmental scanning and doing it on a much more regular basis. And we all know that the pandemic drastically accelerated the move to digital transformation. And as my colleague Bill and Paul mentioned, now the schools are, of course, accepting and preparing for the fact that the online and hybrid instructions are here to stay, even after the pandemic. I've heard time after time how faculty expressing that they're quite impressed by how incredibly resilient the students have been through this all. And they do recognize that students have cut them a big slack for the spring semester, but they cannot carry on what they've done in spring semester to fall and potentially even next spring semesters, right? Faculty also emphasize how even more important to teach and learn about data analytics, understanding big data, and learning to use the data for decision making, especially in this day and age of global challenges. Now, faculty have been incredibly focused on actively engaging students, right, as Christina was mentioning, in the absence of classrooms. And they are quite concerned how to keep up that engagement, right? How to connect with the students in the absence of in-person interactions. Now, they have learned from the past few weeks that using technology and they cannot just turn regular lectures, as Christina was mentioning, and deliver them online, right? They really need new approaches. They need to construct their curriculum differently and need content and resources to make the online instruction more engaging and speaking to what students are already familiar with, right? And most often, students are very much familiar in social media environments, gamification. But the challenge is to really provide an experiential learning opportunities, perhaps in the form of simulations and games.
Well, thanks, Alma. Certainly some common themes of best practices and lessons learned that we're seeing around the world. Let's dive in a little bit deeper on some of these best practices. Desiree, I know in addition to your role here with Peregrine, you also teach with a college there in Colorado in a traditional classroom environment. You had to quickly transition here just a couple months ago to a remote setting with your students. What are some of the best practices that you picked up, not just you, and also some of your colleagues at the college?
Yes, Olin. I've worked in higher education over 6 years in a full-time and adjunct capacity. And of course, right now it's in an adjunct capacity. And with the quick transition to online instruction, I think those of us used to teaching in a brick and mortar institution really struggled. We saw our student engagement changed drastically. We had to invest a lot of time to adapt our classes. For example, my courses rely heavily on in-class discussion to foster skills like critical thinking, cultural awareness, and communication. Replicating what I had done for years in my classroom was not working online, and I quickly had to create and try to find course activities and content that would ensure the same quality of education, produce the same outcomes, and allow students to actively participate. I also found that before the transition, student engagement was much easier. I had an open door policy, office hours, and was able to arrive early to class or stay after to give students plenty of opportunities to discuss coursework, their personal lives, and build relationships with them. In the classroom, I could see them, I could read nonverbal cues. It was just so much easier to engage my students. However, with the transition, those opportunities for connection were no longer available. And so with that, I also had to make some transitions and some changes, namely being more deliberate about how I engage with my students and ensuring all communication is personalized and customized to each individual student. The college I work for did help by providing some training on using our learning management system, but my fellow faculty and I felt that training needed to go one step further. A lot of us struggled with how do we deliver the same education, produce the same outcomes in an environment that is very much different than what we have traditionally taught in the past. And what we really needed was to understand how to utilize instructional content and resources in an online world, and how to effectively implement them, and understand, or at least have a partner who understood and could help us with the science, implementing the science of learning, and how to appropriately scaffold our content so students could be successful in an online environment.
Well, thanks, Desiree. Kayla, you and your team, client services managers here at Peregrine, has not been a rest period for you all for the last few months, working with nearly 500 client schools located in 45 countries around the world. Certainly, you've probably picked up some best practices and had some interesting discussions with these. What are some of the things you've picked up over the last few months?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely has not been a rest period. We've been very busy. We've got to speak with lots of our clients and interact with them. And it's been fun to hear what's working for some schools and help other schools where it may be struggling them. We've helped many schools adjust and change and add to their curriculum, whether it was through, we did a free pilot of our B-School Resource Center to help them add that additional content, as well as our academic leveling courses, and adding those in for additional content online to help some of those traditional campuses with additional materials that they maybe hadn't used in the past. You know, and that's the favorite part of our job, is being able to interact with our clients and work with them and help them during this. You know, it was a very scary time for them, and we had lots reach out to us and say, what do you have, what can we do? So it's been rewarding and fun to work with those clients and help them add and change and find the new way to teach.
Yep, absolutely. Adapt and adjust and overcome.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, back to you, Desiree. You know, clearly through our client engagements, we're seeing some change going on. As you looked at your learners in the courses you were teaching this spring in the transition, what were some of the best practices that, from a student experience perspective, that you discerned?
Well, Olin, I think that the first step to this transition is to think about everything from the student perspective, to really analyze how you're teaching and the platform you're utilizing and how it looks and feels to a student. Whether on campus, remote, or online, students need highly engaged faculty. As I noted before, the transition online has left a lot of students feeling disconnected and has reduce the opportunities for connection. And this has caused a lot of stress and uncertainty. If you take these feelings and you add them to the stress that was already present due to the rigor and requirements of their courses or program, you have a group of students who need a lot of extra support. By providing students with immediate responses and being continuously present, faculty have the power to decrease some of the negative feelings that are associated with this uncertainty. In addition to responding immediately, it is necessary to individualize attention. Over the years, students have begun to seek out colleges with smaller class sizes because they don't want to be a number in the crowd. They want to be seen as the unique and valuable person that they are. In an online or remote environment, students will see a lot more overall classroom announcements and mass emails from instructors. Although the ability to communicate with everyone all at once is efficient, it's fast, it also dehumanizes the interaction, and that's not what we should be doing at this moment. It is imperative that faculty find a way to individualize their attention. I did this weekly by scheduling one-on-one 10-minute meetings with students and sending emails that address each student individually instead of sending mass emails. It took more time, but the results were worth it. Students also expect to have access to resources that enrich their learning and allow them to acquire knowledge through a variety of means. I found that when I provided my students with a combination of readings, video, and static media, they performed better on assignments and exams. It would have been easy to tell them to read their textbook and provide their reaction in an online discussion, but those responses tend to be a basic summary of readings instead of the critical response I had hoped for. So when supplied with a variety of resources, those critical responses became the norm. Students want and expect a variety of means to informing themselves, and when they receive it, they perform better. Finally, I would say that students expect to be able to apply what they are learning in meaningful activities. Students no longer only want to learn theory, but they want to learn application. They want to be able to apply what they're learning to real-world situations. And providing this opportunity to your students further engages them and allows you to express the value of what they are learning.
Well, thank you, Desiree. Certainly a lot to digest here of change that has occurred over the last several months as we've adjusted to what's sometimes referred to as the new normal. Here at Paragon, we've been very busy the last few months. Looking at these best practices, lessons learned, and some of the student expectations that we've already talked about, we've started making some adjustments here. Most notable of those adjustments is the expansion of our leading edge learning competency-based learning modules. So Christina, let's walk through this and talk a little bit about these solutions to help fill gaps, provide activities that engage students, show application, as Desiree talked about, the need for flexibility and customization that Paul mentioned. Where does this kind of go?
Well, I'm really excited about this because this is a direct response to a need that our clients have stated. Now, here what you're looking at are 8 career readiness competencies that several organizations have defined as most indicative of future success in the workplace. These are from the National Association of Colleges and Employers, but you'll see some similarities across accrediting bodies as well. We have created a menu of modular online instructional content by category so that you can build and enhance your curriculum as you go along. The first one here, critical thinking and problem solving. Desiree was mentioning that we needed more engaging activities for students. Don't just assign a textbook and then some questions or discussion board. I wanted to talk about this one-day business strategy simulation. As you can see, we've got several different options here, but this is an extended simulation where the student can't be a passive learner. They have to do it. They log into this virtual reality, really, and they take on the role of an airline employee. They gather information from a variety of stakeholders and customer segments, and then they develop a strategy on how to differentiate a struggling airline and create value. So it is the application, and it gets them immersed in the experience. And so that's one of our new offerings for critical thinking. Now, for oral and written communication, some of you might be familiar with some of the more technical activities we had in our business skills modules or Write and Cite. We've added a new course by Roger Love, well, a couple of them here, Speaking Pro and the Perfect Voice. And if you're not familiar with Roger Love, you should look him up because he is a top vocal coach in Hollywood. He's worked with actors, singers, coached Academy Award winners on their oral delivery, on, you know, not just singing, but also their voice, their nonverbal communication. And to be able to bring that sort of expert knowledge into your class is a real benefit. So that's something that we're pretty proud of. Now, for teamwork and collaboration, this is something that Peregrine Global Services has been doing for a long time in-person workshops. So we've now taken some of those workshops and turned them into continuous quality improvement teams for an online module where the students can learn the content, reflect, perform, and then bring that to their academic setting. In digital technology, some of you might be familiar with what we use in leveling courses for information systems management, but we are adding a 15-hour module that is a deep dive on technology in the workplace. And this is a very timely addition with greater focus on the use of technology in remote working situations. So look for that this fall. Now, for leadership, this really is the strong suit of Peregrine Global Services. Peregrine Leadership Institute was established in 2004, and we've developed a lot of instructional content on various, as you can see here, a wide variety of leadership topics. And we're taking this existing content and turning them into online instruction, and they vary here from a couple of hours to full programs. And they can be readily inserted into an existing course or offered to through your business partners for professional development. Okay. Now, professionalism and work ethic. You'll recognize some of these from our academic leveling courses. We are updating the content and making it more interactive for these new business skills modules that are coming out in August. So you'll find some of those same common professional competencies developed with more interactive content. No longer are it's just lessons and questions. There are point and click flashcards. There are drag and drop matching activities. There are ways where students can listen to audio and video clips to incorporate different learning styles and advance that knowledge. Now, for career readiness, we have several new online modules related to career management. And these are modules that help people enter the workplace and develop skills that are necessary, not just their technical hard skill knowledge, but those interpersonal workplace competencies so that they can advance their careers. And then finally, for the global and intercultural fluency, we're excited to partner with one of the leading experts in emotional intelligence in Europe. Ms. Daria Lewandowska has created 3 new modules of emotional intelligence. So that is something that we can add into academic curriculum as well.
Well, certainly a lot of change and a lot of expansion of our portfolio. As we talk here at the team, when we began the year, we had around 80 to 90 hours of online instructional content. By this fall, late fall, we'll have upwards of 700 hours of online instructional content that schools can use to help fill gaps, to engage learners with meaningful activities. Everything we do is application focused to job and workplace skill development here. So let's talk a little bit about specifically how do you take some of these modules, current as well as some of the new, and incorporate them into your program. Probably one of the most common ways you do that is with business skills courses. I want to talk to us a little bit about how this comes together and what this looks like for this year and beyond.
Yes, as Christina mentioned, most of you are quite familiar with our academic leveling courses, which now make up what is now newly renamed Business Skills program. And then the business skill programs now include 16 modules that teach the fundamentals of business and management education. If you're very familiar with our leveling courses, you might remember that we used to offer 15. So this year, we have added a new business communications module. And business communications is one of the core business topics recommended, as you know, by your programmatic accreditors. So we are revising these modules this summer with the goal of completing them by this fall. And in this new version, we are making the modules more interactive and utilizing multimedia options. And also we are adding new in-progress assessment and engagement activities. So you're going to really love these, how they engage your students at a much higher level. So just to refresh your memory, each module typically takes about 3 hours in duration to complete and includes a pre-test, online instruction, and a post-test. Typically, schools use several of these modules as a prerequisite or as a first course of a graduate business program. We also have schools that use these modules for undergraduate remediation purposes or for leveling of students, right? It could be whether coming into an MBA program or for students who are coming into a 4-year program from a 2-year program, for example. So you can also use these business skills modules to supplement your existing courses, right? To enhance your existing academic curriculum.
All right. Well, thank you, Alma. Bill, tell us a little bit about some of these career advantages and opportunities, career development.
Thanks, Olin. There's schools who are using some of our leadership modules in their career centers, and it helps the career centers develop things like financial resources, or financial ability to understand your finances as a graduate. They also are in the curriculum to help develop these important leadership competencies for students who are going to go into the workplace, and we hope at some point in their career they will be leaders, and then they will have to manage their teams. This fall, we're also offering 2 modules on career readiness, and Christina mentioned them earlier when she was going through the NACE 8, preparing for the workplace and success in the workplace. These are modules that can help future graduates to become competent and confident in their workplace. And one last thing, the Business School Resource Center, as hopefully you all know, has been offered for free until the end of this year. And this resource center is used to help in career readiness. It's used to help in the classroom. We're getting a really big update for the center this summer, and we look forward to you using it, and hopefully will be more user friendly. It's not unuser friendly now, but more ready for you in the classroom.
Yeah, some exciting changes coming to the Business School Resource Center that you will see certainly by September. Let's take a deep dive here for a minute, Alma, and talk a little bit more about leadership development. As Christina mentioned, our Peregrine Leadership Division's been around now for 16 years. We've amassed a lot of instructional content. We've produced some books. We've done numerous workshops. And now we're taking this content and putting it into a dynamic online setting. So tell us a little bit about how schools can leverage these resources.
Absolutely. On the backs and the experience of our seasoned leaders from across the globe, we have a wealth of resources, as you just mentioned, Olin. And during these challenging times, leaders are working even harder to become better leaders, right? The times demand that. And with the Peregrine Leadership Resources, we have been able to offer it to anyone who is in need of actionable leadership tools and techniques. So far, we have delivered these resources to our colleagues and partners, whether they are minted deans, department chairs, and faculty members with administrative responsibilities, or even faculty who are introducing or teaching leadership courses to their be it undergraduate or graduate students. As you can see, we have the leadership resources that include leadership development books and also leadership booklets. And as I've mentioned, there are a number of online leadership courses available to you, and we are working with faculty members who teach these leadership development courses and now incorporating our resources into their curriculum and reading materials for the students.
Well, thank you, Alma. Yeah, the Leading Organizations book, the Hiring book, and the Leadership Foundations book, not only do we have books, but we are in the process of transitioning these into fully grown online modules. The leading organizations one, just because it is so large, is nearly 60 hours. Hiring Leadership Foundations around 15 hours that can be inserted into a variety of programs across the higher education curriculum. Paul, with your experiences in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, how do you see schools within this region leveraging these resources to provide some solutions to these problems that we discussed earlier?
As I mentioned, Olin, right now it seems as though faculty program directors are really looking for better ways to augment and enhance what they're doing online. They realize that they got through this semester, but they've got to do it better. So they're reaching out and looking for ways to do that. And in my conversations with a number of clients and potential clients, the leading edge learning competency-based models that we're offering that Christina went through really provide an economic and an efficient way to deal with not being able to have all your students studying in a synchronous face-to-face environment. And when you start moving in that direction, they see that application very clearly. So with that extensive catalog that Christina went through, there's the opportunity to mix and match, to choose those things that fit best into an existing course or into an existing program where students might not be able to be permitted to be in class face to face. So as I mentioned before, this problem of classroom restrictions, they're really the notion of a hybrid approach with the leading edge learning competency modules. This is a nice hybrid solution that I've been speaking with many schools looking for ways in which they can head off any problems for the next academic year.
Well, thank you, Paul. Well, whatever we do, we can't forget assessment, an important component of assurance of learning and making sure that the outcomes that we're teaching certainly are achieved. New this year is our EvaluSkills service, which looks specifically at soft skills. Christina, tell us a little bit about EvaluSkills and how a school can use this to evaluate soft skills.
Okay, this is something that I've been approached over the past 4 years at conferences. That soft skill evaluation really is a difficulty that a lot of the faculty and program directors are facing. We have created an online 360-degree evaluation service that's based on our leadership 360-degree evaluation, but we've adapted it for the academic world. And it's not one set of soft skills. It's really can be adapted and customized to fit your program learning outcomes. So whatever your intended student learning outcomes are for soft skills, be that communication or teamwork or inclusion, diversity, that whatever those are, you can create a template from, we have over 250 separate items that have attached rubrics. You can mix and match those to create an instrument that you would administer to a group of students in a program, or it could be even your faculty for their development. And then each of those participants that is taking the assessment will have a group of evaluators give them feedback from the outside, because obviously we have blind spots and self-bias. So they will gather, from a half dozen people, some sort of feedback on how well they're performing. Now, from the evaluator point of view, it can be really subjective. How can I say if someone's really good at oral communication or at teamwork? Well, with each of those items, we've developed rubrics that give sample statements and behaviors to reduce that subjectivity, so that when the evaluator is looking at the participant and their recollection of working with them, they can compare that person to the sample behaviors we've got there and select the appropriate rating. And they can also address, with comments, give a little bit more robust feedback, and it's all confidential. The participant will receive their report with an action plan outlining their strengths and weaknesses and what they can do to sustain those. And then for an administrator, they can gather information on their group as a whole to see where the strengths in their program lie and where they might need to, do a little further development. So a very interesting new tool we've created.
We've here at Peregrine Leadership, we've been doing 360s for nearly 11 years in conjunction with our leadership development workshops. EvaluSkills is the growth of that to transform it into a service that fits and is appropriate for the world of higher education, where it's online and you have these standardized rubrics that can handle that reduce subjectivity and produce objective results. Kayla, you just wrapped up a couple pilot studies using the OneDay simulation. Christina mentioned it earlier, this experiential learning opportunity that we acquired last year and that we're ready now to go following these 2 pilots. Tell us a little bit about some of the results of that and what you saw from a learning standpoint.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun and it was great to experience. We had 2 different schools use it in 2 different ways. So one was more of a traditional program course, and they implemented our academic leveling courses along with it as they went through. And then one was a fast track. The students had to do it in a shorter amount of time and get through it a lot quicker. And so we also do tech support. The client services team also provides tech support to the students. So we got to interact a lot with the students as they went through this. It was definitely a different experience than an assessment, your typical assessment that we do. The students, they would come to us frustrated, just like you would in a real job. You know, they would be going along and it would say, sorry, that's not what we wanted. You need to go back. And so they really had to put themselves in there and apply the learning that they were learning as they went along. And if they said, as they talked to people in the simulation, if they responded rudely, they'd say, I'm not talking to you anymore or giving you any more information. So it's real world. I mean, the students have to apply everything along the way that you would in a real job. And it really forced the student engagement. And you couldn't just I couldn't go to Olin and be like, well, what did you pick? What are your answers? To get me through the simulation, I had to play the game and go along. And it was fun because towards the end, students really got into it. And we'd even have students refer to themselves as Emma, the character that they were playing, because they really took it on as themselves and became Emma, in the flight world. I don't know what exactly she was. I can't think of it. And you have to go in and learn different strategies and apply different things and talk to different people, all the way from the CEO to the passengers and all that. So it's great fun, and the students really enjoyed it towards the end. But there was some frustrations, and they definitely had to do a new type of learning, not just your typical textbook, get the answers and go through. They really had to apply themselves. So it was a lot of fun to watch and see the students grow as they went through it.
What makes OneDay unique is the idea that there's no one right answer.
Right.
There's multiple right answers to this. So the students trying to search for, here's the right answer. It doesn't quite work that way. For more information about OneDay and the pilot study, one of the recorded sessions here at the ACBSB virtual conference is the results from Southern New Hampshire, with University of Southern New Hampshire, which is one of the pilot schools. And so I encourage you to check out that recorded panel discussion about how OneDay was used both at the undergraduate and the graduate levels. Let's talk a little bit about Write and Cite. We've made a number of improvements this year, not just coming out with the 7th edition of the APA style manual, but Desiree, tell us a little bit about where we're going with Write and Cite.
Yes, Olin. So as a company devoted to improving quality, Peregrine is continuously working to improve and expand upon each of our services. For those of you unfamiliar with Write and Cite, it is it has 8 modules that prepare students for your classroom by delivering competency-based education and assessment in academic writing. And we actually just had a comment from someone that asked if one of the most important competencies to master is how to write. And as an English instructor, I would have to agree. But this service gives both undergraduate and graduate students the skills and knowledge needed to be successful when they're writing academic papers, theses, and dissertations. And when I came on board, I was very excited about this solution. It would have solved so many problems for the last over the last 6 years. And every semester I think to myself, I need a solution for academic writing. I need that foundation to be laid before I even walk into the class, or, as I'm walking into the classroom. And Write and Cite does that for faculty members. This year, Write and Cite has undergone a comprehensive review. Part of this review included redesigning the course to deliver the content in a more dynamic and engaging way. Also, we took the opportunity to enhance accessibility of the course, and we utilized the 7th edition of the APA style manual to help expand and update the content. And so the solution was great before, and now it's even better.
Well, thanks, Desiree. Turning our attention back to Asia, Pacific, and Indian regions, Alma, how can schools within these regions leverage these new online modules to help fill gaps?
Oh, yes, thank you, Olin. In the US or even in the European higher educational institutions, offering online programs or delivering courses in online environment has been established a little longer, right? Now, for the client institutions in the Asia Pacific region, they have been working to introduce online business instruction into their programs, and they've been sort of having a bit more challenges. Now, as we've discussed, as I've mentioned, the digital transformation has been accelerated due to the current situation in the world. And so you can use actually, especially in the Asia Pacific region, the leading edge learning modules are perfect for building up online programs by using these versatile and flexible modules, right, to create online program, online courses, supplement existing curriculum, and enhance the program. So even from building up to the point of if you have something established, you can really make it into a full-on program. Now, in addition, the schools can also use these leading-edge learning modules to support their business education instruction that is offered in English, in addition to their local language of instructions.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you, Alma. As we look over here around the world, talked a little bit about OneDay itself, of course, but how do you customize this? We've been talking about modules being discrete packages of service, but you can kind of mix and match, can't you, Bill?
Yeah, that's one of the things that really we strive to do in all of our services is to make them complementary of each other. And what comes to mind as a good example is some people need more leveling than our knowledge and skill-based have done in the past. So for an advanced leveling, you could use the OneDay simulation in association with some of our leadership and business skills and develop even a course around it where it could be 3-course credit that somebody would begin a program with to kind of get them ready, understand where you're heading. And it can be finished with our critical thinking test bank as an assessment at the end. Mm-hmm. Another solution I know that is working is they take one of the schools, big school, is taking our career readiness courses and inserted them in each year of an undergraduate at the school, and they're going through and using these modules to help train leaders as throughout the 4 years of school. There are many other ways we can combine things, but those are a couple of examples.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you see those key words there towards the end of that sentence, the critical thinking exam. More on that coming later this fall. We'll be rolling out an additional assessment, complementary assessment to our knowledge-based exams, doing a deep dive on critical thinking that we'll be talking about later this year. Well, certainly a lot going on here. We got things ready to go today, some things coming online this fall. Christina, where are we at with the release schedule of these various modules?
Okay, yeah, we have been busy, and the academic leveling courses that you're familiar with are available and being used right now. But the new and improved business skills modules with more interactive content and videos, those will be available mid-August, as will the updated Cite academic writing tool. And then we are developing more content and more advanced courses on some of those leadership books and materials by later in the fall. Mm-hmm. So, but by mid-August, we will have a lot of new content for your classes.
Yeah, and just yesterday I was looking at the new dashboard, the student dashboard for the OneDay. That looks really good, and it'll be ready. Certainly, it's on target to be ready to go following the results from the pilot study, coming out probably in August. So Desiree, what are some of the next steps if somebody's interested in these modules or perhaps even the soft skills assessment service? Where do we go from here?
Yeah, so the next step would be to reach out to us. We are here in the virtual marketplace, and we are available via email or phone. We really do value our position as thought partners and enjoy being able to have a conversation with you about your students and your school's unique challenges and needs, and how we may be able to help you address some of those. Also, we have put together a comprehensive tutorial that will provide you with all the information you need to fully understand our leading edge learning competency-based education modules. Within the tutorial, you'll find much of the information discussed here today, best practices for integrating content into your online courses, how these modules can aid in student engagement, and all other details you need to share the benefits of our service with colleagues or leadership. Again, to gain access to the tutorial for leading edge learning, reach out to us, or if you have any additional questions. We have received several questions in the chat over the course of our presentation. Olin, do we have time to address some of those, or should we?
I think we've got, as we finish up here, we've got about 5 minutes left in our panel discussion. So I think it'd be great if we could handle some of the questions, and if we can't, if we do run out of time, then certainly come see us in the virtual marketplace here. We'll be here for the rest of today in our virtual booth, and as well as tomorrow, or email us. But yeah, Desiree, we've got a couple of minutes left here. Are there some questions we can answer?
Yes, so one of the questions is, does the instructional materials have solutions, test questions, etc.?
Yeah, the interesting thing, in rebuilding, in some cases, our existing modules, and certainly building new modules, we're developing these with assessment woven into the module, throughout the module. There's these kind of, we call them in-progress assessment. It's just kind of verifying that the student is learning. It might be an interactive matching exercise, may even be fill in the blank. Could be a multiple choice question, but it's something that engages the learner in the learning process. So they're reading some content, maybe they watch a short video, maybe they listen to an audio, look at an animation, or whatever that may be, and then there's kind of a little assessment at the end of that. And then at the end of the module itself, there is assessment that looks at the totalities based on the learning outcomes of the module, usually 1 or 2 questions based on each of the learning outcomes associated with that module, and assessment at the end.
Thank you, Olin. So another question that we have is if our university, or if your university is a client of the modules, an additional costs are included in the existing agreement of the university. So if they're currently a client of ours, how is the cost of the modules?
Yeah.
How are the modules priced? That is the question.
Yeah, well, we are currently in the process. We'll begin reaching out to current clients. I'm just kind of waiting for the final timeline, and then we'll be reaching out to current clients and finding out when the best time to transition you to those new modules are. And your pricing structure will stay the same. Depending if we did do a slight price increase in July, and some people are just finishing their grandfatheredness of that. So there may be a slight price change, but that's based on the price change, not the module. So there may be a little bit, so I don't want anyone to be shocked if we do say that, but it is slight. But we'll be working out a schedule to get you moved at a convenient time to those new modules. So that should be coming quickly, as well as, I'm going to say really fast, we usually do a users group meeting for our clients, but with the new virtual and the way the schedule works, we're actually going to be sending out save the dates and invitations for that, and we're going to provide that at the end of July. So watch for that as well, and we'll feature those modules and some other new things that we have going on during that users group meeting.
Take a little bit of a deep dive. So yeah, as you're all familiar with, we have the individual modules pricing, these longer duration modules. We have pricing for course packs and course pack plus. All depends on how much content you want to add to in a course. I know we're just about out of time. Here's our contact information. Again, we will be here in the virtual booth the rest of today and tomorrow. I want to thank everybody for your participation today. Look forward to talking to you more about how we can engage with you on developing this experiential competency-based solution. Thank you.